So we mustn't underestimate what a miracle we have achieved in the past 50 plus years to feed a population that has exploded. And we did this with science, with technology, with ingenuity, and we really tripled the agricultural output since the 60s to feed this population. But it has come to a cost, and we
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Actionable ESG Talks series brought to you by AKFI Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry consortium committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. My name is Isabella. I'm the co-host of this talk series here with Manuel, another co-host, and our special guest today, Maria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
And a little bit about Maria to our audience. It's a very, very impressive, long background intro. We'll definitely include it in our introduction, description, everywhere. So here's just a quick highlight of Maria. She's a Fortune 100 research and development executive with exceptional, diverse global experience, driving vision and strategy, innovation and advocacy across the value chain in high-impact corporate and nonprofit organization. And throughout her career, she has been strategically focused on translating science and technology opportunities into scalable innovation solutions. And she specializes in guiding organizations and is motivated by business value creation combined with human, societal, and environmental outcomes. Noelle knows how much I love the combination of these three. So excited to hear everything you have to share today, Maria. And she's the founder of Maria Velissariou Consulting LLC, and which providing the expert consulting and advisory service in food and beverage. She's also the managing director for innovation, growth, and development at Kirchner Group, a boutique advisory, operational support, and asset management firm. Again, welcome, Maria. And before I take too long to introduce you, can't wait to hear what you have to share with the audience. And usually we have a very open and broad question to let the guests open in their own perspective to share with us what are your thoughts on the current sustainability, ESG, and digital transformation trends, particularly in your industry.
Thank you, Isabella. And hello, everyone. We live in a very interconnected world, and the global food system is no exception to it. We grow food all over the world, we process it, and we transport it thousands of miles away to feed populations in developing countries. And those countries, they have very different infrastructures and cuisines and traditions. And those infrastructures and societal setups, they can actually vary quite significantly. And global food is a huge business. It's estimated to be $5 trillion per year, 1 trillion of which is actually in the United States. And in the United States, it represents 5% of the GDP. It provides 40% of global jobs and accounts for 10% of the consumer spending. Now, that consumer spending varies depending on the country. And at the same time, all of the food we produce, including all of the agricultural products, they account for up to 1/3 of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So the environmental footprint of global food is absolutely massive. At the same time, we waste 40% of the food that we produce, and we suffer, on average, 17% losses post-harvest. These losses can be very, very high, up to 70% in places like sub-Saharan Africa, where the post-harvest infrastructure is not very developed. And at the same time, we have the double burden of obesity and malnutrition in both developed and developing countries. And in all of this complex food and societal requirements for food, we need to make sure that we maintain our ability to feed and nourish people. It is not only about giving them calories, we need to give them the right nutrients, and we need to ensure that they have agency to feed themselves and nourish themselves in the best possible way for their circumstances. We also need to mitigate and restore the huge environmental impact we have on the planet, maintain social stability, and be resilient in the face of natural and man-made disasters like weather phenomena or geopolitics. Climate is the biggest threat to our global food system, and it is the biggest threat to our survivability. Climate is not new. It is a chronic, slow burn problem that has been with us for a long time, but it is becoming more and more disruptive, and we feel it as such by the changes that people feel on the ground in their daily lives, as well as in the robustness of the supply chains as we know them and as we have been accustomed to manage them. Some examples: coffee growers, for instance, they have to move their farms at higher and higher elevations. Sea fishers, they are faced with depletion of stocks, or they're faced with environmental pollution. They catch fish and they catch an awful lot of plastic at the same time. Or staple grain farmers who lose more crops to mycotoxins, which are very dangerous toxins, and they tend to be prevalent in post-harvest because of poor post-harvest conditions. And of course, in addition to the chronic issue of climate, we have acute challenges like extreme and violent weather phenomena, which are related to climate, the energy crisis, particularly as we've experienced it recently, the pandemic and other zoonotic diseases like the avian flu, geopolitics, the pollution in our on land and in marine environments, and so forth. So we mustn't underestimate what a miracle we have achieved in the past 50 plus years to feed a population that has exploded. And we did this with science, with technology, with ingenuity, and we really tripled the agricultural output since the 60s to feed this population. But it has come to a cost, and we know that it is something we need to address. We're acutely aware of it. We have mastered a linear model of growth and a linear model of innovating. But now we're on the edges of the planetary resources, and we cannot continue to assume that linearity with finite resources is going to work forever. So we need to respond to closing to the threat of the climate change. And we need a food system that is designed for circularity and equity. The global food system is very complex, and it is very extensive in its nature, and requires engagement of many stakeholders and many players. I believe that the watershed moment was in 2015, when the United Nations, they adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And in that agenda, we had 17 sustainable development goals. And those goals became the urgent call to action. It was a rallying cry that highlighted that we cannot resolve the big issues with patchwork. And we cannot resolve them one issue at a time. It really was a common blueprint for all the players to come together. But the reality is that sustainability has been around us for decades. But it is really since 2015 and in the past 5 years that we have seen more countries and many other entities, like coalitions between public, private, and so forth, coming together, embracing it, and learning to navigate sustainability, because it is a learning process. And there are many motivations for this. I mentioned all the pressures that we're facing earlier on, pressures in supply chain, pressures in society, increased consumer awareness, and so forth. Also, on the other hand, there is a push. This push is creating a risk to respond too fast and not respond too deeply, what is called greenwashing. And we need to make sure that this does not happen, or it is called out when it is happening. And there are also other external factors like the lack of universal standards, consumer confusion, immature economics when it comes, for instance, to how do you scale up new types of plastic that they are biodegradable and so forth. So there are a lot of things to consider here in this complex environment. Sustainability has been top of mind for consumers for quite a while, but it hasn't necessarily influenced the way they make their choices. And this is not going to change significantly in a high inflation, high cost environment. We have all seen the cost of food skyrocketing. However, we have seen consumers demanding more transparency, demanding more insight on how and where their food is produced, which is putting pressure on retailers and brand leaders to actually provide this transparency. And this is a very good thing. One example that I would like to quote here is consumer and retail pressure in Europe on the seafood industry actually created an excellent blueprint for seafood traceability and transparency, which is really transforming the way this industry has been operating for a long time. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight here is how industry has come together. The food industry, and here I include agriculture, they have been making significant progress with ESG. And they have been continuously improving the way that they evaluate the company's performance and their readiness for a more formalized set of standards coming from the outside world, be it the market or regulatory authorities and so forth. It is a huge part of corporations these days, and it is growing. And smaller companies are following suit. But it takes time and vision and a lot of resources and agility to make this happen. Many companies started with a focus on their own pain points, but they actually evolved their agenda, they evolved their organization models and their strategic priorities, which is great because it shows adaptivity. Also, we are seeing an significant increase in collaboration between the public and the private sector, with NGOs, with IGOs, as well as uncommon collaborations, particularly between competitors, because they realize that actually a significant part, sustainability is a pre-competitive space. And the last point about digital transformation, we talk about digital transformation, but the reality is that we have entered the digital era. We are in the digital era. And when you look at food, agriculture has been ahead of food manufacturing. I'd like to quote here, precision agriculture is a great example. And now we have climate smart agriculture or regenerative agriculture. But food is catching up very fast. And the pandemic has really accelerated that push and investment in digitalization. And the corporate investments in the past few years have been significant, pushing food up the ladder with regards to industrial sectors that are investing in digitalization. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to come in waves, but it is happening. And just to close with some tangible examples, wireless sensor technologies as part of the Internet of Things, traceability, whole genome sequencing, ingredient bioinformatics, they're all transformational digital capabilities that are happening in industry right now. And they're very exciting, actually. They are exciting for the economic growth. They're also exciting from a scientific standpoint, bringing scientists together from different disciplines, bringing computational scientists more into food. So yeah, I think it's a very exciting time. And it's a time of continuous evolution and continuous investment.
Thank you. You gave us a 360-degree view of not only the food industry, but you touch on agriculture, you touch on digital transformation, and you touch on traceability, for instance. And thank you for bringing so many statistics up. It's scary when we think that we're wasting so much food while we have, countries and populations starving. You touch also on the social aspect of food supply, and I don't think it's anything more potent to create an upheaval than starving your population, right? It's it's so basic, right? And I want, before we move to the next question, I want to highlight also, you brought the genomics and so on in the context of digital transformation. We had a couple of weeks ago an expert in genetics, and she pointed out the link between the environment and our own genetics and our genetic makeup. And of course, food are a critical element. You mentioned also um, poisons and agents that come in the food that can actually be very potent, create potent destruction for people, kill people. So I want to sort of go from outside the world, to the big world, to inside a little bit. And I know you work most or all of your career in R&D, and bringing the question on how the R&D can serve the enterprise, or it's serving, not can, but it's actually serving the enterprise sustainability agenda.
This is an excellent question. When you think about R&D as a function, it's a function that has deep vertical expertise that touch most aspects of the value chain, but also it's a function that by definition has to be integrated across the enterprise. R&D works with procurement, with manufacturing, with distribution and logistics. They work with marketing. They work with finance and legal, and so R&D is actually an integral function to the enterprise. Therefore, sustainability solutions cannot happen without the involvement and the leadership of R&D. So when you think about the R&D experts, they work on science, so they work on scientific discovery. They work on technology transfer, how you take a new discovery, translate it, and then scale it up so that it can be commercialized. That's a huge endeavor, and this can be done within a company. Most likely these days, scientific discovery and translation, they require partnerships with other experts, as well as academic institutions and national labs in many instances. So from scientific discovery to commercial reality, that's a huge role that R&D plays. For instance, the discovery of new types of packaging materials, that they are compostable, biodegradable packaging materials. And how do you structure those materials, and can they withstand traditional processes like preservation processes? R&D touches raw materials. They qualify all the raw materials that come into the factory and are combined together in formulations to make products. They touch on packaging, as I mentioned earlier on, quality, food safety, the entire gamut of what it takes to manage a portfolio of products and services in some instances, like in food service, to provide the right nutrition, and to do this consistently day in, day out. Therefore, it is important that R&D is part of the sustainability agenda. For a very long time, when R&D was asked to develop a new product, really, there were two questions. What is my cost target, which determines the price? And what is the right taste? What will satisfy the consumer? That was not simple at the time. we thought it was not simple, and we were always forever optimizing the product bundle. When we had nutritional benefits, we considered it trifecta. But now the reality is different. Yes, we need to have the right taste. We need to have the right cost, particularly in a high inflation environment like we have now, particularly with all the upheaval and all the unpredictability of raw material availability. But we also need to develop nutritious products that they are healthy for people and healthy for populations, as well as they are sustainable for the environment. They have the lowest possible environmental footprint. And at the end of life, which typically we hadn't considered in the past, we design a product and the product is consumed. At the end of life, we do not waste product. And whatever goes into the environment can be absorbed by the environment. So packaging disposability and its ability to be reabsorbed, recycled, or composted, it's extremely important. So you can see here how R&D is critical in the sustainability agenda of a company. And some companies, they started their sustainability journey by building sustainability organizations within R&D. Others, they built them in procurement. Others, they created standalone entities. But no matter where sustainability reports to, R&D is an integral function to support the sustainability journey. And they have to be involved with the R&D activities and priorities need to ladder up to the enterprise priorities. What's the commitment? What is the plan to act? And how do we measure success? And in doing so, I think it is important to have a different kind of mindset. We need to change the mindset and the culture. And we need to take a little more risk. We need to be more entrepreneurial leaders. We don't always have all the answers for the resources that we need. And we need to show ambidexterity. I talked about ambidexterity in leadership and organizational development. What it means is the ability to perform, manage what we have today, and transform at the same time and be one step ahead of us as a result. And this is extremely important if we want to do things fast, if we want to be agile, and if we want to scale them up. And ambidexterity is absolutely critical in supporting the sustainability agenda during a time where also our industry is digitalizing and the function of R&D is learning new ways of working, i.e., for instance, how to use artificial intelligence or how to work with suppliers in co-development, how to do open innovation and so forth.
Excellent. And when you are talking, especially on the topic of recycling, we interviewed some time ago one of the founders of what he calls Industry 5.0, the wasteless industry. So his approach is to not to process and create waste, but find ways of completely eliminating the waste. And actually talking about looking into the future, I wanted to mention for a second also Isabella's, we call her a social futurist around AKFI, because she's, first thing, she's a published author. Her first bestseller is A Digital Mind of Tomorrow. And she is looking at this cross between technology and the humans. So we can have more on the discussion in the future conversation about it. But you mentioned already the complex supply chains and the need of innovation. I think one topic which comes also in many discussions is the compliance and how you manage between compliance. Food is one of the most regulated industries, I think.
Yes, it is, and I think it's extremely important to design with efficiencies in mind. We have approached efficiencies from a profitability and from a profit and loss standpoint. But it's important to approach efficiencies from a holistic standpoint. The point earlier on about how do we design a process, how do we design a product, packaging, whatever, with the minimal, the lowest amount of resources required to produce it. And actually, the best way to minimize the environmental impact after consumption is finished. So those efficiencies are extremely important. And actually, they give us an opportunity to pivot and say, if we improve a process, a business process, a functional process, process development for sustainability, what other benefits can we have? What does this flywheel of opportunity look like? So I think that sustainability and its application across the entire supply chain can actually allow us, it gives us permission almost to rethink some of the things that we have taken for granted because they have worked for us they work for us very well for a very long time. So let's take traceability. Traceability, which is mandated by FDA's Food Safety Modernization Act and is a cornerstone of the new era of smarter food safety. And when you think about it, it is a significant investment to put traceability capabilities in place. Because traceability, by definition, it is about tracking and tracing your goods, your incoming materials, raw materials, and your products. But actually, in addition to chain of custody, it gives you the opportunity to look at the quality, be more predictive and prescriptive so that you can prevent quality issues, to improve your food safety. You can do a lot of great work with provenance, country of origin, country of harvest, and you can respond much quicker to incidents. You can isolate the incidents and so forth. So there are tremendous opportunities that can be harvested from investing for sustainability, but then we can take those and apply them across other aspects of the value chain and vice versa. You can look hard into your capabilities and your processes, and you can see what you can copy and paste for the benefit of sustainability, or how you can integrate capabilities in smarter ways so that you can have better sustainability outcomes.
Thank you. And Isabella, maybe I turn to you. I was captivated by the story Maria put in front of us. Please,
Thank
you
you.
can continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. It's a very well presented. It's almost like a lecture to me, well structured, and in every facet of the sustainability industry, combined with digital transformation. I'm not good at taking notes like Manuel. He's very dedicated, writing down key points. He knows me. My flow is like maintain, operate in my mind. Everything is racing here while you're talking, and I just let it pick out the keywords, my brain algorithm, when I trying to share my feedback and what I heard from you, just to name a few things that come to the top of mind. It's how you are well aware of this new developed industry that is in a very early stage, requires entrepreneurial mentality to navigate forward. And However, it is very challenging with many traditional rules and assets and minds, and that really resonate with me and come with the side effect when we are operating in a different mind. It's corporate based on the profit and loss value, and to greenwash things and many other operational management issues that we come across. So things like those I am really touched on because I guess you're focused on the combination of societal and environmental and technological perspective, not just focusing on the profits or the technology alone. So you mentioned also the holistic view, and we've heard that also many, many times. And every time we feel encouraged because we need to let more and more people to be aware of these things. It comes down a lot to human ourselves to execute, to plan, to change. A lot of time tools will help us, but if we don't make a change, nothing will change us, and it will just like a cycling in the original place. So thank you so much for looking at this on the very high level, comprehensive perspective to give our audience another shout out, to move forward differently. So yeah, many thanks on sharing on these kind of things today.
Thank you. Thank you, Isabella, and thank you, Manuel, for the opportunity. I would just like to close this by saying that this is a big call to action, but it is also a big call to really reconsidering the way that we think and the way we work. We are so accustomed to hierarchical structures, and we need to start thinking more about working in ecosystems. Ecosystems can be a little uncomfortable because they shift, but they're very adaptive and they can lead us. We need to trust that they will lead us to the right places. Also, we need to bring more diversity. Linear thinking, absolutely, but also more lateral thinking. Invite and recognize cognitive diversity. Embrace digitalization. Rethink the way we innovate. We innovate for consumers, but also we innovate for people, for citizens, for members of society. And we need to wrap it all together under the banner or under the North Star, I would say, of sustainability. So this is exciting. It is challenging. And at the same time, it is really inevitable. We have to do this because the planet is giving us a very strong warning signal, and humans are really wired. They're programmed to survive. Humans are programmed. They're wired to survive. So sustainability is really tied to our survivability.
It's tied. Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
It absolutely is, but if you think of life as being a constant challenge, a constant game, right, between the individual, with the society, with the technology, with the challenges, the rules of games are changing, and the rules of games of the game are changing for us to live as human beings, as part of the ecosystem, as part of the environment, as part of the society. We need to quickly adapt to the new rules. And I really like your, the North Star of sustainability should be the guidance for really uncharted waters, right? We're sailing in a new environment. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for the final statement of your thoughts on the future of sustainability in this crazy, fast-changing world, and everything you said. I think it's crucial for all of us to be aware and to keep in mind and to continue sharing. As you said, there's no direct answer at this stage with this new territory that we're tapping in, but it's important to continue the discussion and to figure it out together. So thank you again, and thank you to all of our audience today for taking the time joining us. Make sure you tune in every week for a new episode of AKFI's Actionable ESG Talk series, where you can gain new perspectives on mitigating risks and creating value by integrating ESG and digital transformation. Until next week, goodbye for now. Bye, Maria. Bye, Manuel.
Thank you, Maria.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Isabella. Thank you.